one project for us at the time was to build a big interactive bridge of the future to sit on a touch screen for a boat, like the old charting table, but now it's digital, right? It was just cool. It was really, really good fun. That was. The one size fits all is an illusion. Maybe the best KPI for these products we offer is disengagement. Right? How actively can we get them to it? Perhaps we should measure ourselves by how quickly we can get them off it. Monochrome's differentiation is to always bear the end user in mind in everything that we do. I think that an efficient process doesn't necessarily make a good user experience. Okay, so it might be on paper that the workflows are absolutely poetry, that everything's going to just lock together so perfectly. But if you don't actually go and ask the person who's then engaging with that service or whatever touch points have been created, then you might find that actually it's not nearly as efficient as you think. So.
From the 1990s, where websites were the latest and greatest, to apps, to designing the bridge of the future for ships. What a story. But from there to what next? Apparently, wait a minute. Welcome to another Employee Experience Labs podcast from the Munich Podcast studio. Employee Experience Labs podcasts are about HR tech, employee experience, shared services, and other interesting topics around HR at the workplace. Today's episode is an addition to our startup and AI series we are running. But I have to admit that the company we are talking about is not really a startup anymore, but still a company I wanted to introduce and talk to in a bit more depth. Because the topic and service this company offers should, and rightly so, is at the center of what we do in experience. UX and UI. I had the pleasure to talk to Dave Marsh, CEO of Monochrome, a company that designs the experience into your ServiceNow platform. And how to do this and how not to do this is what we went deep into. And much more, starting from video games and going into the discussion why a good process not necessarily brings a good user experience. But listen for yourself. Dave Marsh, CEO of Monochrome. Hello, Dave. It's so great to see you today. It's so fantastic to have you on the podcast. We tried for a long time to get this together, but both are busy. Year end, year beginning, everything in between was a bit difficult. But I'm so happy to have you today. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm very, very well. Thank you. Very happy to be here. I'm very much looking forward to do this podcast with you finally.
Yes, finally. And me too, because we talk about something that is really dear and near to my heart, which is experience. But before going anywhere close to that, Dave, you and I, we know each other, but the audience doesn't know you. So tell me a bit about yourself. Who is Dave Marsh? What is your background? What did you do before you landed at Monochrome? And what experience did you have to get you where you are today?
Well, I mean, I knew this question was coming, and I realized just how far back I had to think to kind of answer it, really. In the late 90s, I went to university and took a degree in something called multimedia, which kind of predated, really, the internet or website. I mean, okay, the internet existed. Websites were very much in their infancy. I think they weren't even on our curriculum when I started that degree.
Yeah.
So that kind of evolved as I was taking the course, and I left having completed that degree and went into a web design job. And I think there's a lot of stuff I can say that I took from that degree and that first experience that's relevant to what it is I do today, which not everyone can really say, can they? Because sometimes you end up you study something and you move in a completely different direction. But my path has been relatively steady. I think there's always been that backbone of design, graphic design particularly, and user experience. And that I've kind of taken on a course through, for a while I was building video games, which was kind of fun, but it was a bit of a tangent, really.
Very cool.
kind of loop back into web design, and I loved using Flash. I mean, going back to those early 2000 days of using Flash, we could do whatever we wanted with Flash. It was such a great tool. Of course,
And it always kills your machine.
it killed your machine. You had to have it for starters. If you didn't have it, you were getting literally a message telling you to go and get it. So immediately, that was a fundamental UX fail. But for those who did have it, and for those of us who were building it, I mean, what a great playground that was to express our designers. And I don't think anything really ever come close to it since. Now everything is very standards driven, as it should be. And yeah, we've seen websites become highly commoditized. And I think my journey following that brief experimentation in video games brought me back to, in fact, for a short period, running a hotel. Funnily enough,
What?
yeah, for about a year, I just got married, and I found myself. My parents were running 3 hotels, which was a huge undertaking, and I had this entrepreneurial spirit in me that wasn't really being answered necessarily by just delivering websites, having a job,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I kind of took the opportunity, and it actually opened my eyes to some opportunity within that industry. So I started a business off the back of running one of these hotels with my parents, called
Huh.
Hotels 24/7, and it was a booking
Oh.
agency that focused on airport hotels with parking. So it's kind of a niche. Turns out I love niches, and we'll talk about Monochrome. You understand what I mean? You've got to find your niche, right? And I found that one,
Yeah.
and I built Hotels 24/7 reasonably successfully. But I think that looking back now, it was more my opportunity to make mistakes and kind of stronger,
To learn.
better person. The business didn't survive COVID, which is fine, and now we move on. So I think even before COVID, I was starting to think, there's something else out there for me here, and I'm looking for my next change of direction. And for whatever
Yeah.
incidents, that led me to the door of Adrian Munn, who was the founder, Adrian and Jason, founders of
Yeah.
Monochrome, and they were looking for someone to come on a contract to do some creative work for them. So I was kind of very happy to kind of do that, I think, and take a bit of the pressure
Yeah.
off what was going on with the Hotels 24/7 business. And after about a year of that, it led to me being offered the role of creative director, which I very happily accepted. And I guess the rest, they say, is history. That was about 13 years ago.
This is crazy. It's just wow, amazing. And now you are the CEO
No, and the
of Monochrome.
CEO, yes. So I mean, there's been a journey as well, an evolution of Monochrome. Monochrome was founded in 1999 by Adrian and Jason.
Yeah. Wow.
Not when I was still learning my trade, to surface that kind of emerging market of sites. That then in time evolved into app development, very much so, because, like I mentioned, websites have become highly commoditized. Really, the opportunity was there for Monochrome to deliver solutions that simply didn't exist out the box or on the shelf. Like that's ultimately why apps are created, I guess. And so Monochrome moving very much into that app space as I was joining. And as is that industry, you kind of have to be very used to adapt to the next project that comes through the door.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
looking back to some of those days, one project for us at the time was to build a big interactive bridge of the future to sit on a touch screen for a boat, like the old mapping, the old charting table, but now it's digital, right? And there was this cool,
Wow.
it was really, really good fun. That was the very next project through the door. Is a great example of the kind of tangents and the unexpected projects to come
Yeah.
next. The next one was for dysphagia, which is like a medical condition. It means you can't swallow certain things and they need to be liquidated to a varying degree. And it's very important that that's done, because giving the patient with a severe dysphagia something that they simply could chew could prove fatal.
Yeah.
That is just a great example, I think, of having to jump from one industry to another, very quickly learn to adapt and understand what the information is being told to you. Steadily, that journey took us towards
Yeah.
ServiceNow.
Wow. And now let's talk a bit more about Monochrome and Monochrome today. So Monochrome is specialized in ServiceNow. It's specialized in ServiceNow. Or you're coming and talk about this please, but you're coming more from the UX UI front on ServiceNow, but that's not all, right? So talk a bit about Monochrome, what we are doing now.
Yeah, sure. So, um, having gone through that journey then of websites to apps, the
Yeah.
opportunity landed, I think it was around about 2013, for us to deliver a ServiceNow project for British Telecom, which we
Yeah.
absolutely took on. We had no idea what we were walking into. Um, it wasn't the platform that it is today, of course. And it was
Very different,
very
very different.
different early days, really.
Yeah.
But it was a very successful project. I think that experience that I described of us just being used to being outside of our comfort zone meant that walking into service now was just another problem to solve in that moment. So we took on the
Yeah.
project. It was actually the challenge, I suppose, fundamentally that they were looking to solve was that they wanted essentially use ServiceNow as a website. Like it wasn't gated behind your typical login
Yeah. Yeah.
procedure. And that was very interesting, challenging at the time, but we embraced it and it was received very, very well. As time's gone on since then, we've just moved steadily towards becoming a pure play ServiceNow agency. So every year
Mm.
that's gone by, in the 13 or 14 since we took
More
on
and
that
more and
project,
more.
more and more and more. And now we're in 2026. We are really saying that we are a pure play ServiceNow agency. I think all of those other apps are kind of just things we don't really get too much involved. It's all about ServiceNow these days.
Mhm, mhm.
So next phase of our website that's going live imminently will absolutely speak to that. So yeah, that's really how we kind of just moved through the process and how we got to where we are now. And I think you asked me about UX and UI, right? So this is a key differentiator. This is the differentiator from Monochrome. We are
Yeah.
it, you can see where it came from, actually, I think, talking about that BT project, because we were brought in to deliver an aftermarket solution. So we don't
Uh-huh.
implement, or we, at least historically, we've never been an implementer of ServiceNow. We
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
in to solve a problem after it's been implemented. And that problem is invariably related to user experience. There can be other things, and ultimately, we just set Monochrome up as a support service for people who had ServiceNow, and it found it didn't quite do what they wanted. Um, it wasn't an intentional decision in that first instance to say, right, we're going to be UX, UI experts within the ServiceNow platform. But neither were we saying that we necessarily had the right skills to stand it up, because we didn't
Mhm,
back in
mhm.
the day. We were really applying our skill set learned elsewhere to the product once it had been running and identifying flaws in it and fixing them. I think that's how our service evolved. And of course, over time, we looked to put a bit of a moniker on it, like how do we go to market with this business?
Mhm, mhm.
That is at the point when we started saying we are UX and UI specialists, because that
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
become really the bread and butter of what we were addressing.
Yeah. And to be honest, Dave, it was very long or not long ago that ServiceNow itself thought about that, right? For a long time, it was a knowledge base, a case management system, but there was nothing from a user engagement, user perspective, there was nothing to engage with. I didn't do this at all, right?
Mm, mm. Well, it's a developer-led solution, like so many.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. The problem existed, and it was sort of solved by a bunch of very smart people who knew how to write some
yeah.
very efficient code. Um, Actually, that's still quite familiar. I think, like it is still typically stood up by technical practitioners. In
Mhm, mhm.
Monochrome's differentiation is to always bear the end user in mind in everything that we do. So that's not to say that we haven't now evolved to a point where we can offer implementation services. To be able to
Yeah.
do anything inside a service now, you need to be technically competent with the whole stack. And over time, we've evolved to a point where we can employ people as experienced as Monochrome is, or more so even. We haven't had to do the homegrown talent, which we did to start with. So we can do anything inside a service. And I am very
Yeah.
keen, however, to always differentiate us through user experience. So what that means is,
Yeah.
even if we're implementing it, we're thinking about the person who's going to consume it. Every
Mhm,
step we
mhm, mhm.
take, we think, hang on, are we implementing this in this moment because that's how we would want to receive and use this tool, or are we thinking about the person who actually needs to consume it? And in doing that one simple thing, we're helping our clients to get a far better return on investment from
Yeah.
that platform.
And Dave, you implicitly make a very interesting point here, right? And I think that is something we should dive into in a moment. The the differentiation between UI and UX, right? It's not only the glossy, shiny front screen that makes the experience. There's more to it. But before we go there, I have not seen anyone else other than you going into that, and you alluded to that niche, right? Of the typical UX UI. How, like, when you speak with potential clients, how do you pitch this? What's the elevator pitch for Monochrome if they already have someone else maybe implementing it or have it already implemented? What's the pitch to say, like, hey, there's more to it than what you have there?
What we like to say is that we deliver a competitive advantage to our clients by uncovering previously missed opportunity through
Yeah,
better application of UX and UI. So it is about finding a better return on investment from
yeah,
ServiceNow license fee, which, as we know,
hard facts. Yeah,
pardon?
hard facts,
Yeah,
hard money.
absolutely. Yeah, it's an awful lot of money. So with that comes an assumption that surely it's going to absolutely be perfect for my specific requirement. But of course, it can never be. And ServiceNow has to build these platforms generically, and ultimately they're creating a square peg. Your business represents a round hole. And I think that's maybe the point where you need someone like Monochrome to come in and say, right, where's
Yeah,
the give and take on either side of this to make sure that both these things can come together, not
yeah, yeah,
just to make it work, for the end user. So yeah,
yeah,
that's very much what we're focused on doing, ensuring that end user experience is as optimal as it can be within the realms of common sense, of course, because
yeah,
we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I use that term quite often when I'm talking to clients because there's a fear that we're going to come in as UX UI specialists and just say all of this is rubbish. We're going to chuck it away and we're going to build something brand new on top. But of course, in doing that, we're creating technical debt. We're maybe spending money unnecessarily, and we're fixing problems that have already been fixed. But neither do we really want to be tinkering around in the gray areas of customization, causing problems
mm,
when you go to upgrade the platform. We don't want our clients to love our product on day one. Maybe 18 months later when they're going to run that upgrade. So and these are things we have to learn.
whoops.
Yeah, and everyone's
Yeah,
familiar with that
yeah,
scenario where you did everything with the best of intentions for the right reasons, but ultimately you over-engineered the solution in
yeah,
that first
yeah,
instance. And we're very cautious with that. We absolutely don't want that to be the case. So what we're looking to do is find a sweet spot between what comes out of the box and the problem that we're trying to solve. And sometimes that
mm.
means having to accept maybe one or two steps back from perfection, but that's
Mhm.
where we're finding the return on investment. Because otherwise, you're over investing to then fix it again down the line. We're very
Yeah,
just to make sure that that's avoided.
yeah, and that makes perfect sense to me. And this is the true unlock, right? Because what is very often in the way between an implementation and a successful implementation is user adoption. And if you don't do proper UX UI design, your user adoption will be just way too low to return anything on your invest. So basically, that's the key, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of KPIs that you want to be looking at when it comes to proving a good UX implementation, and adoption
Yeah.
has got to be one of those. Like, um, there's a really lovely internal conversation that we had recently around
Yeah.
adoption, engagement. Get people to this platform. And some smart person said at some point, "Hang on a minute, maybe the best KPI for these products we offer is disengagement, right?
Mm.
How actively can we get them to it? Perhaps we should measure ourselves by
Mm.
how quickly you get them off it, because to
Off
come off
it.
it, you had to have
Wow.
it, and to
Yeah.
come off it, you have to have completed your task. So if we're talking about an ITSM portal and we're looking at that KPI that says, right, is this a really efficient tool that really delivers on the promised service?
Yeah.
Perhaps the KPI to judge that by is disengagement,
Yeah.
which is a very interesting concept.
It is indeed a very interesting concept, but you're you have a point there, right? In the end, for the majority of people who will use a solution like ServiceNow, this is not their main job. They come there because they have a problem to solve, and that problem keeps them away from their day job,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that sooner they've solved the problem, the quicker they're back to getting on with what they actually want to be doing.
and productive. Yeah,
Productive. Hence the term portal. It's like it's just really a transaction. It's just
yeah,
come
yeah,
in, complete the task, and go. We're going
and
to talk
go.
about AI.
Yeah,
I know it's coming up because AI has got to be the subject of almost
we'll,
any
we'll get
podcast
there.
these days, right? But
We'll
I
get there. We'll get there.
engine that in a way, and yeah, but
Yeah.
we'll pick that up later on, I'm sure.
I am sure we get to that. But before going there, um, so you've shared, Dave, what differentiates you, and it makes perfect sense to focus on UX UI. But how do you go about it? Like, how do you make sure that you, in fact, deliver on this focus on the personas that are supposed to use the solution?
Mm. Well, we have 4 pillars to our service. Discovery is pretty much where we
Hmm.
start with any client. Quite often, we're discovering things with the client, sometimes
Hmm.
really on our own behalf. So there's 2 sides to it. We have to go into someone's ServiceNow environment with complete confidence and understanding. So discovery in the basic sense is for Monochrome to make sure that we know what we're getting into. Then there's
Yeah.
the area that we'll do with the client, where it's like, actually, have you ever considered a user-centric taxonomy? And they'll be,
Mm.
no, what are you talking about, maybe? And I'll say, well, we all know about the taxonomy within the employee center. How about a parent level to that taxonomy that surfaces items that are specific to the persona who's using it? And it might not be that it wouldn't just be specific to IT or HR. It would be
Yep.
pulling things across from those different departments. So immediately within that drop down, you've now got access to the things that you're most likely to want um, in your mega menu inside of the employee center.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an example of a great discovery workshop. So we'll
Yeah.
go through a lengthy discovery period, a couple of weeks, maybe with a client, sometimes a little bit longer. Difficult to manage diaries these days. In the old days,
Yeah.
we would have gone to our customers, we would have come out to Germany or wherever, and we would
Yeah. Yeah.
have for a solid 2 days in one room and sweated it out until we had all
Mm.
the answers. It was just the way it was done. And then COVID came along, and now
It was,
got more than 2 hours anywhere in their diary. So
but to be fair, probably it was more effective and efficient back then when you had it like all in one go, wasn't it?
certainly more efficient. I think it was quite exhausting though. And I
Yeah. Okay.
personally wouldn't want to do that myself these days. And I think it's interesting the way the world's shit. But yeah, so discovery can take a bit longer depending on how we can line up
Mm.
our diaries. Then we're looking at perhaps advisory services. So sometimes if you've now identified the problems that you have, but perhaps it's not the right time to implement them. This can often be the case
Mm.
inside a service. Now, there's 10 other things that we need to do. Everything that Monochrome is saying is important it needs to be
But not
addressed.
now.
We can't do it today. So perhaps advisory services is just there to just sit in the background and help our clients work towards that better solution in time. Really, it's just a consultancy service. At the point where the cloud's part and it becomes clear that a project is on the horizon, that we need to deliver a sizable chunk of work,
Mhm.
typically in an agile sprint format, we'll move into project delivery services, of course, where we'll just have an SOW of our clients. Everyone knows what page they're on, signed, and crack on with the work. And that moment, we're fixing the problem. And then the final piece
Mhm.
of the puzzle is really managed services. So we've identified the problem through discovery and advisory. We fixed the problem through project delivery. Managed services, let's keep it fixed. We don't
Yeah.
want falling back into old habits. We don't need to spend the money to fix the problem now. I need to find you've got to spend it again in 3 years' time. So we'll
Mm.
stay on board and hold our clients' hands going forward under managed services. So typically, any new client that comes to Monochrome is going to fall into any one of those categories, and it's very much dependent on So and they've all been very well honed over well over a decade.
Mhm.
In a way that means that we are always remembering that the reason we're doing this is to solve a person's problems outside perhaps of our own motivation, right? And that's the key. It's
Yeah.
in user, and yeah, we'll keep looping back to that because it's what
Yeah.
we're.
No, makes perfect sense. Thanks, Dave. Let's let's pivot a bit into the topic we touched some time ago. UX UI. Why is UX different from UI?
Mm. Yes, I mean, I think this is my personal take on it. UI is very much part of UX. So if you ask me to tell you in one sentence what Monochrome
Yeah.
is a ServiceNow UX specialist. To me,
Hmm.
that incorporates user interface. I can't have a good user experience with a bad user interface. So I think if you wait to me to just break it down into the simplest possible terms, then I think, and it is a bit more complicated, but let's say the UI is how it looks. UX is how it works. All right.
Yeah.
In the simplest way of maybe expressing that. So you could maybe have a poor UI that sits on a good system. It works well, but the interface is poor. It works. You could have a great UI on top of a terrible UX. It doesn't work. So for
Yeah.
that reason, UI to me is the baby brother of UX.
Mm,
UX is
that's nice. The
fundamental.
baby brother.
Yeah. How does it work? Right. This is
Yeah.
fundamental reason to have ServiceNow implemented in the first place is to solve a problem. Does that problem do what it's meant to, is it solving the problem in a way that the actual user can use it?
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Now, you're doing this work over quite, a number of years already. When you think about particularly, we could reference this as well, portals like the ServiceNow portal. What has what has changed, or did anything change actually?
Everything changed. Everything is still changing. Nothing
Yeah.
stands still in service now, you know very well from your own experiences. Um, Going back to that very first, I think our first encounter with ServiceNow predated what we all would have called the service portal. Then the
Yeah.
service portal was released, and it made our job quite easy in some sense.
Mm.
It wasn't. It was very easy for us to improve it, shall we say. The version of that portal that was first released by ServiceNow was nowhere near the standard that they're at now. And we were able to
Yeah.
therefore make quite the splash by coming in
Hmm.
and building infinitely better interfaces. Of course, as
Yeah.
ServiceNow have iterated through that process, released the employee center, seismic change, continue
Yeah.
to grow, AI experience coming next. Um, Monochrome has honed its service. So I think one reason, maybe, I think this is a really interesting concept, and it comes back to all these things we talked about, the difference between UX and UI, and um, why we may have been mistaken in the past, perhaps a nice to have, is because perhaps back in the day we were doing more reskinning than we were really solving
Hmm.
fundamental user experience. We've had
Mm.
to become so much better at our craft because the UI got better and actually gave us
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
opportunity to deliver the UX far more efficiently. So these days we're
Yeah.
very much about solving the user experience. We want to steer away from the misconception that we're doing that by reskinning the
Yeah.
port. Reskinning is a part of the process. It's the making the UI more on brand. Perhaps it's making certain features pop out to you as a user. We want the right fonts and we want the right shadows. But if the data's not there fundamentally underneath, then there's really no good you can do. You really at that point
Yeah.
are putting lipstick on a pig, which is quite often
Yeah.
a term that I hear and frustrates me because monochrome service is about so much more than that. It's a very technical.
Yeah.
You have to be very technically competent to deliver a good user experience inside of ServiceNow.
No, indeed it is, and that's a very interesting observation, and I think yeah, it makes sense to me, right? Service now pushed more and more into the design of the portal, but it was not really always a completely thought through journey that followed from the portal to where you needed to get to, right? And I mean, you could say you had to focus more on on the other part because there was so much more happening on the UI already. But you could also say ServiceNow really enabled you to get stronger into the UX because they helped on the AI front, on the UI front already a bit, so that you could really focus on the strengths that you bring on the UX. No?
Very much. I think I can give you a lovely example. So we found that with the old service portal, it was the same complaints. So our customers would come to us and we'd say, we're going to run some focus groups. But
Yeah.
a few of those, well, all the answers are coming back the same. It's the same 5 or 6 things that are blocking everybody. And one of the classic ones was that your service catalog was completely siloed from your knowledge base. So actually,
Yeah.
so it just meant that they operated independently entirely of each other and did nothing to encourage.
Which doesn't make sense.
No, no. If you're used to the employee center, you'll know now that with the dynamic topic pages, you do see these surface side by side. And we solved that problem very quickly with something called the WOW portal. The WOW
Mm.
portal, the name came about because that initial service portal was kind of underwhelming, right? I don't think anyone's ServiceNow will find me saying this. And our versions were wow. So people would lean in and they'd say wow, and before we knew it, it
Yeah.
was now called the Wow portal. um, and we were rolling out features 4 or 5 years before ServiceNow then rolled them out perhaps into the employee center.
Yeah.
As they've
Yeah.
kind of grown and gathered speed, I think that the point where we can identify a problem and they can close the gap has got shorter, for sure. And
Mm.
everyone would know and agree that the product that comes out of the box now is infinitely improved. I mean, it's
Day
unrecognizable
and night.
what it was.
Day and night.
All the more so important that the Monochrome is delivering on the user experience over user interface, because we do still put a lot of effort into the UI, and because it's got to be on brand, and we want to interact with the guidelines. And it should feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
suite of products. At that point, how much value are you bringing? I really see a UI reskin now as something I refer to as a UX quick win, whereas we might almost there might have been a misconception that perhaps an improved UI was somehow going to magically make things work better, because if it would be very easy to naively look at a poorly designed portal and assume because it's not pretty looking that it is poor user experience. But actually, I think when you get under the hood of it, you can find out quite quickly that really changing a few colors, making it more aesthetically appealing is only winning a few very small battles. So kind of a quick win to get a slightly better UI in there. What's the
Yeah. Yeah.
ROI of a UI overhaul compared to a UX one, where we actually went, right, these workflows are flawed. You've got users coming
Yeah.
into this form who literally being asked to fill in 50 different bits of information. They really only needed to give you 3. Stop making it so difficult for them to simply
Yeah.
drop
Yeah.
that form. And that's irrelevant what color the input field or button was that you pressed to do it. And there's a really
Yeah.
great example of UX versus UI.
Yeah. Fantastic. You have alluded to this already, Dave. We need to talk about AI, of course.
Yeah.
Let me be provocative at the beginning. I hear, a few companies in that space basically saying AI is the new UI. What what do you think about this? And does AI also mean the end of portals? How do you see that?
I've heard the same rhetoric, and I
Mm.
think it in the same way we just spent the last 10 minutes plus distinguishing between UX and UI. Let's just quickly do the same to distinguish between AI and UI. In
UI.
the same way that AI is that baby brother to UX, you need an interface to interact with AI. So the UI is not dead. It's just being simplified down because the power of AI is taking away the need for us to just clutter screens, portals,
Mm-hmm.
links to things. So if you think about the pre-AI version of the Employee Center, it's just a huge amount of shortcuts. There's nothing on that
Yeah.
screen that isn't there to get you to something else. You're not doing it, you're not performing that transaction, you're not completing your task in the home screen. Now with AI, you potentially are. You didn't need to
Mm-hmm.
dive deeper into the portal. There was almost nothing you could complete previously on a pre-AI portal without diving deeper
Yeah.
into it. Now with AI, of course, you've got your prompt, your chat window, and it's done. So it's
Mm.
absolutely transforming portals. Is not replacing the UI. It still needs its own UI, just a far simpler and therefore far more user-friendly
Yeah.
interface. And then did you ask me if the portal is dead? Um,
Yes.
I mean, if you take fundamental interpretation of the word portal, right, a way to get to something else, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's probably dying. It's changing
Yeah.
very, very quickly for all those
Yeah.
aforementioned reasons. I think what we're building now is more so destinations. And
Mm.
you could see that perhaps in the evolution of the employee center. So you jump from employee center, so you jump from service portal, you're running that for your IT, and you get your employee
Yeah.
center for IT. Then you might
Yeah.
have HR and finance, and you bring in this unified hub together. Then you might jump it into perhaps being a Monday intranet, which is some of our clients are actually replacing
Mm-hmm.
SharePoint with the ServiceNow portal. But at this point, how much of it, what is it really a portal anymore? Because you're actually where you needed to be to consume that information. So news articles are being added. And then I think if we add AI into the mix as well, then really the portals are becoming distant. I don't think the term portal is going to die, but I just think if you really think about what it meant to be a portal, it was that one stop shop concept that I think you and I,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where I think
Yeah.
everyone had this dream of a one stop shop. Imagine
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just did everything in this one interface. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got 10,000 different apps within this business. We've been going for forget it. Forget it. It's never going to happen. Not certainly not a couple of years ago. So what was sensible? A one-start shop, right? And
Mm.
that really speaks to the term portal. It's
Mm-hmm.
and going back to that collection of links that it essentially is. It's all those useful things that any particular employee might need in any given moment to get them to something so that at least they know where to start, and it might not be where they finish, and it almost certainly would have been. With AI, well, pretend if your data, big if, but if your data exists to support that, you should love for you because it's huge. It's easy.
It is huge. Yeah.
You got the data, you're fine. Oh, yeah, no worries. But
Yeah. It's just.
yeah, as long as you have that, then
Yeah.
then that whole landscape changes, doesn't it? It is seismic in that sense. It's now all done and completed. The start, the middle, and the finish, maybe in seconds, is done inside that prompt.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
huge change! I suspect
Yeah.
that where the conversation might go next is in the event of this change. What do we
Yes.
do with all that free real estate? And this is very exciting.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or maybe
Tell
we
me.
can answer some of the questions that we never thought to ask ourselves before, which was if we
Mm.
weren't just so focused on building links to everything else, what would we have used the space to do? How
For.
could we
Mm.
genuinely
Mm.
support our employees with the advent of this becoming a destination for them? So it's um, a permanent support tool throughout their day, not just a transactional drop in and drop out. So we're running
Mm.
something called the Vibe portal internally. This is our own um, internal system, which we're kind of developing into a product where our team can surface Jira tickets, for example.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
can they can look their hours. So we're tying different systems together. Um, it's helping them to be more productive throughout their day, not just in that transactional moment when they perhaps need to drop in
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
and leave. And I think that's probably the evolution of that. So in that very early embryonic phase of the Buyer Portal, where we're kind of created a to-do list, I suppose, supported by AI, we're now looking at additional widgets. So we talked about personas, or I think you very briefly mentioned personas. We didn't get too into it, but of course, a persona is a key part of delivering a good user experience. And
Yes.
traditionally, a persona, if you came to us as a client, would be determined based on your job role. Okay,
Yeah.
what does that person do? Okay, these are the things that they'll need to see. Static, end of, done.
Yeah.
What we're thinking now is am I the same person at 9 a.m. on a Monday who goes home at 5 p.m. on a Friday? Okay. How my personality evolved during that time, and what might I prefer, what might I like a destination interface to do to support me on that. And I think if you throw remote working in the mix, it becomes even more
Ooh, yeah.
attention, because you've got a lot of
Yeah.
people who are through their own choice mostly. Or we've embraced hybrid working in Monochrome. Um, they typically take that option, just the more comfortable one in the short term. I don't have to commute. I could get on with my work. But what's actually now missing, like from the day, and I've seen it in younger employees joining the business, people maybe 3 years into their career, perhaps aren't where I was 3 years into my career. And when I thought, well, why is this? These are smart, capable people, because
Hmm, hmm.
we're osmosis. This is the word. This is what's missing, in my opinion. Just sitting
Yeah.
there, overhearing conversations, not even
Mhm, mhm.
being in the environment where business
Yeah.
is happening around, monochrome is happening all around you. And I'm just here
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
up on the terminology that's being used. I'm picking up on the challenges that the business is facing. All of that noise is gone, right? It's
Hmm.
quite good in
Yes.
some. If I've got a very tight deadline and I want
Yeah. If you need to head down. Yeah.
focus, fantastic, I can crack on. But that isn't healthy, I don't think. So we reveal an interface that has focus mode for when you want it, and the best
Mhm, mhm.
describe what that looks like is that looks a bit like ChatGPT. Okay, it's just
Mhm.
you and your AI, and you're nailing tasks. At the point
Yeah.
you wanna come up for breath, when you're typically, so the difference between me being head down and head up in an office, where I might catch the eye of a colleague and we might just exchange a few pleasantries. We might just swap. It might be in relation to work. It might well not be, but these are healthy interactions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is something that we're really trying to embrace. So it's a very compelling concept. How do we build that destination interface that help fill those gaps? And that's the long-term dream for the market.
Wow. That is. I mean, you're definitely onto something there, right? Because this is a problem, particularly for the younger generation. How
Mm.
do they learn by just observation? How do they learn like in the background, and how do they get the exposure to observe what others are doing, how others are going about stuff? And this is not only like the hardcore that, hey, how do you code, but it's also like, how do you approach a problem, right? Which you in the back
Definitely, love
of
skills,
your own.
learning from their peers, people
Yeah,
who've been there and done it for sure. Of
yeah,
course, we're having regular touch points and we're all jumping on meetings and
yeah, but
but
they're very focused again, right?
yeah, they are, and I think that it's a real challenge. I don't think there's a portal that fixes it wholesale, of course, but I think that there is one that makes it 20 to 30 to 40% better of an experience.
Yeah,
Some of the things that we've got in development are a virtual view of your office. Okay, it's not your office, and it doesn't try to be. It's kind of a very simplified view of an office, and immediately you just see your team. You can see if they're at their desk. You can see if they're open to a conversation. Are they in focus mode? In which case, lead them to it. So we're just encouraging the fact that you're working in a pod of people. They would change depending,
yeah, yeah,
but at least you can see something that represents them, right? You got to get a sense that they're in front of you, right? So it's just a very, very simple mechanic to make you feel immediately that you're not on your own for all this, right? Because it's tough. Next up, we've got something which we're literally calling the water cooler. Okay. That great moment when you go to get some water and you bump into
yeah.
someone and you say, "Oh, I'm trying to solve this problem and I'm playing this," and they go down that, and he'll say, "Well, have you go and spoken to Jeff because he solved the same thing for so
Mm.
and so," and it's gone. Again, we're
Yeah, 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 yeah,
it's like you're our own, because we are. I mean,
yeah.
we're not. We
We
can reach
are,
out
yeah,
to colleagues, but where's the casual interaction? And I want to find a solution to that without taking away from the increased productivity that AI brings. But I don't think it should be purely about productivity. What we're
yeah,
finding very interestingly is that when we're the team members that we're building these tools with are starting to realize that the AI is an asset to their career, not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are thinking, blimey, where am I going to be in 10 years if this continues to explode? Is there a role for me in this brave new world? And I can only speak for Monochrome and the small team of people that we have that we've been working with on AI. And the answer has been to that question, absolutely there is. And I can
Mm.
actually see a more enjoyable approach to my daily tasks and I'll be more productive, I'll be more fulfilled. Perhaps I might even have slightly more time for those water cooler type conversations and to no detriment to the business that's employing me. So it's very interesting, I think, to see how they've reacted to the opportunity to work with AI, because definitely at first, I think there was just fear. Sort of
Hesitation.
but Dave only wants me to figure out AI so that he can ultimately to do my job and fire me. And of course, absolutely not. But you could understand where that sentiment might be there initially, a bit of trepidation. But the more we've embraced it, the more the team are finding just how powerful it could be for them as well as Monaco.
Yeah. Amazing. That was an amazing trip to the future, Dave. Thank you. Let's come back to the today. When you think about the three biggest challenges that you see today in the area of employee experience, what are those, and how would you approach them?
I think fragmentation, I would say, is one.
Yeah.
I've used the term square peg and round hole a number of times. One of my favorite sayings. I'm always conscious that I loop back to that one a lot. But I think that is so true. So we've got so many teams that are so siloed in their own working. You can go down a different layer. We've seen the coming together of the knowledge base and the service catalog, and then we're seeing the coming together of IT and HR. But these are not easy things that just happen overnight, because ultimately everything is fragmented. We work with companies, some of the bigger enterprise companies. One told me they have identified 25,000 apps internally that are licensed.
What?
25,000, and they wanted all of them to be on brand. Of course, it's a huge undertaking. They're gonna work their way through. They'll get rid of a few, but ultimately,
I
this is
hope about a few more.
well, maybe just buy a couple that can maybe replace like a few hundred here and a few hundred there. And I'm sure that there would have been some tiny things in there that they picked up on. But it's if we're going to deliver that great user experience, then that fragmentation needs to come together in a way that's kind of managed and governed. But I think that is difficult. The terminology doesn't align between IT and HR fundamentally, and then how we go about solving those sort of challenges is one of the bigger ones. I think that an efficient process doesn't necessarily make a good user experience. Okay, so it might be on paper that the workflows are absolutely poetry, that everything's going to just lock together so perfectly. But if you go and ask the person who's then engaging with that service, or whatever touch points have been created, then you might find that actually it's not nearly as efficient as you think. So I think that would probably be my second one, that an efficient process is not per se a good user
Most experience. Yeah.
And you could well do with a specialist like Monochrome coming in to help you with that sort of more holistic view of it, because I know this from my own experience. Some of the things that I'm closest to are those that I can't see the wood for the trees kind of thing.
Yeah.
I quite often will step back or ask someone to come and help me see what I should be seeing, and it's I think that's a key part of it, because I suppose you could presume to be able to solve user experience yourself, because you might be the service owner, but at some point you're also someone consuming that service. But if you're just basing it on your own experiences, then you're probably not seeing the bigger picture. And then finally, I suppose I would say that the one size fits all is an illusion. This is why Monochrome exists. because there is nuance within your business that should be accounted for if you want to get the best out of this tool set. Just presuming to be able to stand it up out of the box and run
Yeah.
A1 is highly unlikely unless your business happens to be absolutely aligned to ServiceNow best practice. You do because it's highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah. Except if you are ServiceNow.
I'd never seen a more customized service portal than theirs. So
Really? Okay.
voice into me like, yeah, but that's highly customized for that. Yeah. So yeah, maybe go bigger. But yeah, I think it's a hugely powerful, fantastic tool. You need to be able to make it work for you by manipulating the bits that are meant to be manipulated and leaving alone the bits that must not be messed with, that you will have problems. And that's that smart distinguish. That's how you smartly distinguish between custom and customization. To build something entirely custom to solve a problem is probably never going to cause you too many problems. To customize something that half does the job outside of the box, and then you're going to build on top of it and twine it and clone it, there you're asking for problems, right? So it will never be a one size fits all solution. The way you go about making it work for you is probably key, is absolutely key.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. I think this is a good it's a good final thought, right? Everyone, every company, every persona is a bit different, has different needs, different requirements, and the best experience is that is fitted to your needs and meets you where you are. And this is what you do.
It's true. And I think some people will never mind. So what I'm saying is there's a generational gap here because
Yeah.
I moved on so quickly. So maybe perhaps the older generation would just be like, yeah, I'll just figure it out for myself. Maybe I won't even use it.
Yeah.
Next step up, all right, I'll use it, but don't bother changing anything. I want to work it out for myself. The younger generations coming through perhaps do expect things to be that better an experience because they grew up with phones, right? And consumer grade apps are amazing user experiences, and enterprise ones historically aren't. So I think there's a whole plethora of experiences that need to be considered, and it's more so therefore than just a persona that is based on a job title. We have some really cool tools within Monochrome that let you customize the Employee Center. We've yet to release this, but you could customize the Employee Center interface if you want to. And I think that key, this is what AI can probably help us with, just some smart application UX and UI. I have the control over the experience that I want, because even if you choose to have the out of the box experience, then that's still your personal choice. So I think it's a very interesting subject and one we could no doubt talk all day about.
Amazing, Dave. Yeah, I think two final thoughts from my side. Number one, you will never run out of work, and number two, it's amazing how far one can drive this from the old days of rudimentary portals to, hey, you can adjust your portal the way you want it, and it's more than a one-stop shop. It's going towards a one-stop shop. It was an amazing conversation, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's always great to see you.
Good to see you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, and you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.